Hey, Carolyn Arends here. Want to do something a bit different today. Want to just show you some cool things you can do on guitar in the key of G. Now the reason for this is because I just spent a bunch of time making downloadable songbooks for, I have two new albums out. One's called Recognition, one that's called In the Morning. And so I was charting out the chords for all the songs on both albums. And I realized that I am playing in G a whole bunch. Sometimes because the song is actually in the key of G, and other times I'm capoing somewhere on the neck so that I can keep using G shapes. And I promise you, this is not because I only know how to play in the key of G. I can play in some other keys, but there's just really cool stuff you can do in the key of G that's hard to do in any other key. And if you've ever had that experience of you like a song and so you find the chord chart on the internet and you download it and you play it and it doesn't sound the same as the song, that's probably because whoever the artist is has their little tricks that they like to do in whatever key it's in. So I thought it might be fun just to show you a couple things. You might already know these, but if not, some fun things you can do in the key of G, okay? And the first thing we got to talk about is what your go-to G chord actually is. When you're first learning guitar, sometimes they teach you this one where it's just like literally one finger and you only strum the top four strings. That's okay because your hand is developing. Then often they'll teach you this one, right? Your second finger is on the third fret here. Looks like this. And that's okay, that's fine. It's a very serviceable G chord. But eventually, hopefully, you learn this G chord, which is all four fingers are involved. So second finger on the third fret, first finger on the second fret, open, open. This finger, third finger on the third fret, and pinky on the third fret, right? And there's a couple of reasons why I want to argue that this should become your default G. Sometimes you're going to use other shapes, but why this should be kind of your go-to, your home base G. I actually call this four-finger G. When I was teaching it to my daughter, I used to call it the Big Daddy G, which is about the dorkiest possible name for it ever. But for lack of a better term, we're going to call it the Big Daddy G. You want to make the Big Daddy G your default G. And the reason why is because A, it sounds great, right? Nice and rich. But also because it allows you, for many, many chords in the key of G, you can keep these two fingers in place and just move these fingers around and get a bunch of your other standard chords in the key of G, and it'll sound great. Because whenever you're changing a chord, if you can keep some fingers the same, it will be a smoother transition. It's not always possible, but it's a nice way to connect things and get things flowing in a song. So in G, if you've done some playing in G, you know your main chords are going to be G, C, and D, 1, 4, and 5 in the scale, and then E minor, which is a minor 6, and A minor, which is a minor 2. So what's cool is that I can keep these guys down and I can go, right? You probably know that. That's C, we might call it C2 or C9 because of this extra color note here. But there's just this nice back and forth there where all I'm doing is just changing these bottom two fingers, right? So back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Then if I want to go up to D, I can actually just do this, right? Just this finger onto the second fret of the G string. Now that's going to be a D sus4. It's going to have this kind of tension note up here, but I can then resolve it if I want, right? Just move one finger there. So far, I can keep these two fingers here and go G, C, D. What if I want an E minor? I can do that too. Now, because I'm keeping this finger down, it's like an E minor 7. It sounds pretty nice, right? And I could even move these guys over here and get a form of A minor 7. You see what I'm doing? So E minor 7, A minor 7. And then those are all kind of my main things I need in the key, right? So G, C, D that I might resolve, E minor, maybe an A minor. And then the cool thing is I can kind of walk around once I get the hang of it, right? So I can go, I can emphasize this string to get a G over B. So I've been doing this for a long time, these particular shapes. One of the very first songs in my career was called Seize the Day, and it was totally this trick, right? It was, right? E minor, C, D, G, E minor, C, D. So now if you're reading the chord chart, you'll just go G, E minor, C, D, and that'll be fine. But if you want it to have some of those cool tension notes and connection, then you'll just keep these two fingers down and go like I'm showing you. Right? Okay. So, as often as possible, go to the Big Daddy G because it gives you all these options. Now sometimes you can't, like say you want to do, if I know that I'm going to want to go G and then just kind of like a C over G, right? Like, you know, that's kind of a classic thing where you hammer back and forth like that. Well, then I'm going to play my G this way, a 3-finger way. But I'm not going to, you've probably been taught a G this way. I'm not going to do that because it doesn't give me anything else I can do, right? So I'll do it this way. So it's like this way that people often get taught, but each finger moves up one over. So like this. So I might do that if I know I want to do a hammer C or something, but if I'm not anticipating doing something like that, then I'm going to do my Big Daddy 4-finger G. So this video is arguing for the Big Daddy 4-finger G, because then it lets you do, as you get used to it, all this walking around, right? So, right? And it doesn't mean that sometimes you won't then want to hear a nice full normal C or a nice normal D with no tension notes, but it just gives you the option of alternating back and forth. So there's a song on my new album called Godspeed, where the first time I go to C, I'm going to do it based off the Big Daddy way, and then the second way, I'm going to go to the natural C, so I'm going to go, what's your hurry, little pilgrim, always running so behind, right? So the first time I went to that C, the next time I went to this C, because it does something a little bit different in the music, but it just gives you a few more options to work with, to start to work with the Big Daddy G. All right. The only other thing I want to mention is, and this is more new, this doesn't go all the way back to Seize the Day. This is something I started doing on these new albums. I just noticed, and you probably already know this, but I didn't, how nice it sounds as an option for your D chord. If you are coming from a traditional C chord, you can just go to a normal D, but a really cool option is just to slide the C chord 2 frets, and you get this really pretty D with all these tension notes in it. Or if you're using a full version of a C chord, you might have learned this version of a C where you add this finger on the bottom string to get a G down here, so it's kind of a C over G, but it's just a richer C. You can actually do that for a D. So sometimes you might want to play with that. If you see a move from C to D in a chart, especially if you're working with any of my charts from any of these new albums, you might want to experiment with, okay, I'm playing a C and I see that it goes to a D, but instead of going to the traditional D, I'll try going there. So let me show you how that C to D thing works with that song I was showing you earlier, Godspeed. So it goes, what's your hurry, little pilgrim, always running so behind. See, I went to that D. When I showed it to you before, I went to this D because I didn't want to confuse you. But what I'm actually doing is going to this D. Why the worry when God's children All got world enough and time. You got to slow down. Oh, now I'm gonna do my sustain thing. Catch up, grow young, grow up. No more chasing the wind. Let the spirit lead till we slow down to God's speed. So I'm doing all those sustaining things. Slow down. Now a regular D to G. So just when you see in the key of G, you see G's and E minors and C's and D's, just know that probably the artist is sometimes doing that and other times doing the more traditional shapes that you would expect. But the beauty is, if you learn the Big Daddy G, it gives you lots of options. So, hope that helps a bit. Hope it wasn't too confusing. None of this is a lie. You can totally reinvent any song, including any one of my songs, any way you want. But it's just nice to have a few more tools in your toolkit. Play on. What's your hurry, little pilgrim? Always running so behind. Why the worry when God's children all got world enough and time? We've got to slow